Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nathan Simmons. Today, we instead of Nathan Kwan, we have our honorary Nathan, Evan Tenenbaum. And let's just dive right into first the Cowboys. You want to share your thoughts on their second loss of the season and their second loss to the Giants?
Well, first, I'd like to say I told you so, and Eli Manning has the devil's magic in him. Second of all, to be honest, it really wasn't Eli Manning to force us to have our second loss this year. The Cowboys essentially beat themselves. They had a bunch of opportunities in both halves of the game and didn't take advantage of it. I want to talk about a couple different things that A, as a result of this loss, and B, parts of the game that were either interesting or problems that we had on offense or on defense.
Okay.
So we did lose 10-7. The only touchdown was on a bootleg pass to Terrence Williams. Thank God he caught it. The entire Giants defense got fooled by that bootleg. So, I mean, with a wide open Terrence Williams, you're probably going to score a touchdown. So there was a couple things that the reasons why we lost. We probably look at the number one is our third downs, 1 for 15 the entire game. That's not good for a team.
It's the second week in a row.
Yeah, it's not. That's for the second week in a row. It's not good for a team that's supposed to be leading the division. You can't win games by going 1 for 15 that often. The second one, Dan Bailey at the very end of the first half missed a 55-yard field goal. It hit the post. It was basically a field goal had it been 6 inches closer to the goalpost. I don't necessarily blame him for that much. It is cold weather. It's kind of volatile how you can make at least 50-plus yard field goals anyway, but in cold weather it's even harder. That the problem with that is there was a holding call. So we had the possession before. There was a holding call when we were on the return. So it pushed us back at least 10 yards or so. So when we were doing that drive to set up for field goal position, maybe we would have had a better shot without that holding call holding us back for a little bit. So maybe we could have had a better chance for field goal, and then we would have been talking about overtime. Third of all, Dak, for the second straight game in a row, was not good. He was 17 for 37, 165 yards, only had 1 touchdown, had a couple picks, and I think he had a fumble. Now, Eli Manning had an equally bad first half, but he, again, devil magic, recovered, had a much better second half. And our defense really played well throughout the entire game. 3 turnovers. I was really proud of Tyrone Crawford, and that there's someone else on the D-line that also got a sack that forced a
Benson Mayowa.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sean Lee, just a monster, stopping the run, and Anthony Brown also had an interception. So I can't really blame the D on this. You have to blame Dak. You have to blame Dez, who had a fumble, and he had really poor route running. One of the interceptions, I think, was on one where he stumbled on the route. So that's not very good. Any thoughts on your side?
I mostly agree with what you said. There was a really interesting analysis that I read on Dak, and it seems to be that a lot of teams are beginning to pick up on is just that he's very slow at at making his reads, and that's one of the reasons why he seems to be holding onto the ball a little bit longer than most, and also he seems to have definitely not as good a pocket presence as Tony Romo did. I mean, granted, Tony Romo's one of his strengths from the get-go was always the fact that he was able to sense a edge defender coming at him as soon as the pocket began collapsing. But it seems like Dak is much more prone to not only just like being unable to sense a defender running up from behind him, but even when he does notice it, he either runs into the defender or he just tries to stay in the pocket for too long still. But the biggest thing for sure is just that he seems to be not be able to sense when a receiver is wide open. There was a play towards the end of the first half. I was able to watch the game on repeat, And it seems to me that like there was a chance that he could have hit Cole Beasley as he was getting separation from two defenders in the secondary, but instead tried throwing it to a well-covered Terrence Williams on a bootleg. And had he thrown it to Cole Beasley, he would have had his second touchdown of the game. Now, granted, both QBs had a particularly poor game. Honestly, Odell Beckham pretty much bailed Eli Manning out from going without a touchdown the entire game. And honestly, had Barry Church not had a cast on, he would have had 2 interceptions, and Eli Manning would have finished with 3 interceptions on the game. And also, shout out to Anthony Brown for getting his first interception of his career, and he's really stepped up in Mo Claiborne's absence, and honestly for the whole season too. He looking like another steal from this draft for the Cowboys. But the big thing going and like you pointed out, Sean Lee has been a terrific monster. Tyrone Crawford is beginning to live up to his contract. Benson Mayo is at least filling in admirably for both DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory. And it looks like DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be out for this upcoming game, and it looks like his back hasn't fully healed, and that's why he hasn't been as effective this year. But going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how Dak Prescott is able to bounce back from this, especially when you consider how he still is not as good throwing the ball downfield because he locks his leg a bit and it doesn't allow for him to put as much zip into the ball when he throws it for those bombs. But going forward, what do you expect from this? How do you think the Cowboys will do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Okay, so Tampa Bay, it's not as much of a this isn't a rivalry game. I know Tampa Bay is a little bit on a hot streak right now. The player that really worries me the most is Mike Evans. He's always a threat. If you got Jameis Winston doing his thing, you got to have your corners on lockdown. So having Anthony Brown playing well at this time right now is of the most importance. And with Mo Claiborne still out, you got to look at your other guys to step up along with Anthony Brown to make sure that those wide receivers are on lockdown. Offensively, again, it's one of those things that if Zeke is good, you have an option. Now, I did want to talk about this really cool analysis that someone did on the Cowboys subreddit about the offensive downturn. Basically, they realized ever since Jeff Swain, so he's the backup tight end, the Jason Witten, ever since Jeff Swain got down with his injury in the Pittsburgh game, we've had to move our backup tight ends up one, and so that leaves you with Gavin Escobar as your second tight end, and then we have an emergency third tight end in Joe Looney. Basically, what the analysis has been saying is we like to go into a 1-2 offensive formation, which is like one running back, 2 tight ends. That's about 35% of our offensive plays are 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And based on what tight end is in the game, defenses can figure out mainly if we're going to be running or passing. If Gavin Escobar is in the game, he's a good route runner, but he's a terrible blocker. People are going to think, okay, they're going to pass, so they let the safety stay back a little bit, and there's a little bit more coverage. Dak will have a harder time finding an open receiver. If Looney's in the game, then they'll know it's a run. Then the safety will know to attack more. And now Zeke can usually mitigate that kind of thing. But when you're in the 1-2 and you're doing 35% of your offensive plays and your defense can almost recognize what's going on, it's going to be a run or a pass play that really severely limits your options. And so the solution may be either maybe throw some passes to Looney. Looney needs to know how to run routes. Or you have to play with your 2-1 package, put McFadden in the fullback position or something like that, and make him the blocker. Basically, you need a better blocker as your second tight end or as your fullback in order for both running and passing to be effective in the main package that you throw in offense. And I can throw you a link if you'd like. It's on Reddit.
Sure, yeah. I'll include it in the description for anyone who wants to read the full analysis on that one.
So
yeah, no, I agree.
That's pretty much my idea. Anyway, Tampa. Again, it just depends on if Dak can find his receivers and we can have better blocking and things like that. And I could see us winning this one. Again, stakes aren't that high. We do win the division. If the Giants end up losing to the Lions and we win this game, but we can't clinch home field or anything by winning this game. And the outcome of the Lions and Giants game, the winner would be still 2 games behind us. But yeah, you'll have to look at Dak having a game in order for us to win this game. And if he doesn't, I know the topic conversation about Romo is going to come up a lot, at least in the Dallas media.
Oh, for sure. We're already on quite a few Cowboys fan blogs. There have already been talks of cries for Romo to replace Dak. And while I don't necessarily agree as of this moment, I do think it's something they should consider, especially if Dak has another bad game this week. Granted, the Tampa Bay defense is another strong defense. It's going to be the 3rd time in a row that they face one of the top 10 defenses in the league, which in a way also has coincided with which might also explain part of the reason why Zeke's production has kind of been a bit down. But at the same time, do you think it's too late to put Romo in, or do you think they should just ride out Dak?
Yes, I think it's too late. You have to look into the future at this point. Tony Romo is going to be a good quarterback for some other team, unless Jerry is sincere and not leaving him as trade bait. If you put in Romo now, one of 2 things is going to happen. One, he's going to be good, and all those questions are going to start again about, well, maybe Tony should still be our quarterback next year. If he sucks, then his trade value is going to go down, and you're not going to get much out of what you can get on such a big contract that we still have on Tony Romo. So the best right now is still sit and wait, hope that Dak isn't faltering like Carson Wentz did earlier this year. And literally the only way Tony Romo's playing is if Dak gets hurt. And that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's fair, yeah. I agree to some extent, although here's my take. This is mostly just to play devil's advocate on this, but I will say this. The biggest, to me, one of the biggest reasons why we lost the Giants game was just simply put, just the lack of experience that Dak has. Like all the problems that he does have are very correctable in the off season, but we don't have an off season, and we definitely should be competing for a Super Bowl this year. And going forward, and this is just mostly just out of maybe like my loyalty to Tony Romo, but this might be his last chance at competing for a Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, if Dak can't get it done against Tampa, the worst thing that could happen is that you just go like, you know what, Romo, you've carried this team for the past 10 years. The least we can do is just let you have this one last shot. And even still, like going into next year, I think either way, even if he plays really well, we win a Super Bowl, I think he still gets traded just because of the cap hit. And the sooner that we're out from under that cap hit, the more we can use that cap space to help the defensive side and sign that, because going forward, we're going to have very cheap production from both Dak and Ezekiel, assuming that Dak doesn't regress substantially throughout the rest of his rookie contract. But that being said, I still do think that Dak bounces back this game, and more than likely we end up riding Dak throughout the playoffs, and in the end we end up trading Romo for hope. I hate to say it, but like hopefully we get a first round pick for him. But
we're not going to get a first round pick for him with his contract. Probably not.
With his contract and injury history, it's going to be very hard. But at the same time, Sam Bradford was able to get was also able to get a first round pick back, and there should be a pretty high demand, especially since there's not going to be like a highly touted quarterback prospect in this year's draft. But going on to the next topic, the Houston Texans. Neither of us are huge Texans fans, but we did both. I believe both of us did watch at least some of that game. And I do have some notes from Nathan Kwan about it. But you start off. What were your thoughts on this game?
So I watched mostly the third quarter. This is at a time where neither team was really doing much. Houston ended up beating the Colts 22-17. It was a very integral game for the Houston Texans to have won. It's an interdivision game. You have three teams at the top of your division, all tied, all vying for that lead spot. And you knocking one of those opponents down is huge, and it's good for morale. Regarding the game, it wasn't a very good game. Texans only had one touchdown on offense. Osweiler was just okay and average. He didn't have any touchdowns. He did throw an interception. He was under 200 yards passing. He probably could have been better against the specific defense he was against. Indianapolis does not necessarily have a good defense, but they did step up and do their work. Nick Novak with 5 field goals, and that was really much the difference maker in that game. Lamar Miller had a good running game. That's basically getting them to within field goal position. So when you have a running back that's on point, but your passing game isn't, and you can get within field goal position, sometimes you could just luck out and win games by a couple field goals. Mm-hmm. And then again, Andrew Luck is not God, apparently. And he's still trying to overcome his pitiful defense. I mean, obviously the defense did okay this time, but sometimes you need to overcome that. Like a lot of Tony Romo's criticism in his last 10 years was his defense was not good, and yet he was still to blame for all the losses that we would have. This is one of those kinds of games that the defense wasn't quite good enough, and Andrew Luck couldn't quite get the job done. So that's a couple of my thoughts. Did you have any thoughts about the game?
Pretty much. The big reason that Houston won was because of the defense led by Jadeveon Clowney, basically pretty much like living up to his draft prestige as a first overall pick. He and both Whitney Merciless were able to get at Luck. I mean, granted, Luck is playing behind a very, very porous offensive line, but even still, they were able to take advantage of it. Osweiler just didn't make as many mistakes, and basically Osweiler did not lose this game, and it basically got out of the way of everyone else on that team. There are some concerns that they might be running Lamar Miller into the ground, but at the same time, like they gave him that huge contract, and that was always going to be sort of the thing with Lamar Miller, because Lamar Miller, while he's not, I wouldn't say he's a bad running back, his biggest asset is that the biggest thing about Lamar Miller was that he was just so underutilized with the Miami Dolphins, and so therefore when he finally came to the Houston Texans, while he was still already logged in quite a few years in the NFL, he was still lightly used. So at the end of the day, they shouldn't be that worried about running him into the ground. But they especially with the rest of this team, they should be trying to save him a bit. The Titans had, yeah, that's true. The Titans were able to pull off the win against the Denver Broncos.
Oh yeah,
but even still. Yeah,
keeping pace.
I mean, even still,
it's gonna there. Keep going.
Sorry, yeah. They even though the Texans are in the driver's seat, like the Titans were very impressive against still a very good Broncos team. But even still, the Titans have a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they still have a much tougher schedule coming down the stretch. And the Texans still should be seen as as the more likely team to make it, but I would contend that the Titans are probably the better team.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts?
So regarding the AFC South Division race, so I think we're all in agreement at this point. Indianapolis would have to win out to win that division, and even that would be a challenge. They could probably tie for the division at that point. So we can essentially count them out. Losing to Houston was not good for them. Tennessee, they could probably get away with losing a game, probably losing to the Chiefs. They shouldn't lose to the Jaguars. Neither team should lose to the Jaguars. Texans play them this week, and Tennessee plays them next week. But then they face each other in Week 17, and with either team one game down of the other, essentially the winner of that game will win the division. So it may not even matter what the schedule is for at least for the Titans and Houston. For Indianapolis, you have to win out and pray. And then I still think Houston's going to win it. I think Houston will lock up, at least with their easy schedule. They won't falter, and then they'll win that game 17 or Week 17.
For the most part, I agree with you on that. But yeah, let's. Do you have anything else to add about the NFL in general, or just want to just move on to MLB Hot Stove?
We have a couple different things I want to talk about in the shoutout section. So
okay,
we can wait till then.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right into the MLB Hot Stove. There was a lot that we talked about last week. And while it wasn't as action-packed this week, still quite a few signings went down. Which ones do you want to discuss?
So I'm going to start with one that we actually missed last week during the winter meetings. Dexter Fowler got signed 5 years, $82.5 million to the St. Louis Cardinals to play outfield. Essentially, it's a swap of outfielders with the Cubs. They had Fowler last year, and St. Louis had Hayward 2 years ago, and then the year before, and the Cubs got him this year. It's a good signing by the Cardinals. They're kind of on their downturn. They still have young, good pitching that always seems to come up for them. And I just think for the Cardinals, it's a little too late. It's going to be very difficult to compete with the Cubs for that division. The Cubs are on fire. Like they're in charge of everything. And I don't think Dexter Fowler's that much of a difference maker in the Cardinals outfielder to push them above. What do you think?
And well, maybe in the Cardinals' minds, they thought this was some sort of form of revenge for them for the Cubs signing Jason Hayward away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Although that being said, like Jason Hayward was not that good this past year, and so it looks like they're going to be the Cubs are going to be depending on him to at least make a bounce back going in, so that they can at least like replicate some of the production that Dexter Fowler was able to produce. I mean, granted, like Dexter Fowler wasn't necessarily the most important player on that Cubs team. He was a very big one of the bigger reasons I would say that they were able to have as good a season that they did.
I would call him a glue guy. Yeah, he's not Chris Bryant, who is the powerhouse of the team. He isn't the Ben Zobrist, who's your defensive guy. He's the glue guy. He's the guy who.
Yeah, he's not Anthony Rizzo. He's not Javier Baez. He's not Addison Russell. Yeah.
Yeah. And interesting note, he did. So you look at the outfielding market right now. He got $82.5 million in 5 years. It is $12.5 more than Ian Desmond got with Colorado. So comparing Dexter Fowler and Ian Desmond's really production last year, Fowler was obviously slightly better, but Desmond had a much better first half. And it's interesting to see how the market's really going with that. A couple other signings we want to talk about. Kenley Jansen did decide to go to the Dodgers, like we had discussed last week. 5 years, $80 million, and he has an opt-out after the third year. So a couple things I want to talk about that. This is a fantastic signing by the Dodgers. Kenley Jansen had last year the lowest whip of any reliever above 60 innings pitched, a 150 opponent's batting average, 104 strikeouts and 11 walks in 68 2/3 innings in the regular season. So when you think of top-notch closers, you're thinking of Aroldis Chapman and Zach Britton and Andrew Miller and those kinds of names. Kenley Jansen's kind of the last guy in the top-notch closers that you would necessarily think about. And the Dodgers did have to answer the Mark Melanson signing that the Giants had, and they did that with Kenley Jansen. I still think the relief market is a little blown out of proportion. I think having that 3-year opt-out may be beneficial to Kenley if he continues to be good past that 3rd year. If he starts to suck, the Dodgers, I think it's on the players opt-out side. Kenley may want to opt into that and not retest free agency. So if I were the Dodgers, I'd look out in about 2019. If Kenley Jansen is still at this level right now, then he may opt out, and you may have wasted about $32 million.
Just to add one thing, I agree that the relief pitcher market has really inflated to a rather absurd level. If I had to predict, I think he doesn't really opt out. Assuming that this relief pitching market that bubble bursts within the next 3 years, and like going past that 3rd year, he's probably, I don't think he's going to be able to get as good a contract as he would have had if he just decides to stay with the Dodgers. But we'll see.
Definitely. Okay, so couple more. Odubel Herrera signed a 5-year extension with the Philadelphia Phillies. That is worth $30.5 million. This is probably the signing I like the most out of anything that's happened in this past week. You're looking at the Philadelphia Phillies, who are not going to be competitive in the NL East in 2017. They're probably not going to be competitive in 2018. And then them in Atlanta will be the most competitive in 2019 by giving those. I think signing Odubel for 5 years, he basically gets he gets 1 or 2 free agent years bought out by the club. And this is especially good for Philadelphia. They have a bunch of contracts that are just now coming off the books. Ryan Howard's retired. He's down from $25 million per year to only $10 million for I think his opt-out years. And by the way, he's been garbage for 4 years. If you don't remember, he used to be a really damn good player. And so they also have Cliff Lee's contract coming off, and Matt Harrison, who decided to retire last month. He still is owed, I think, 2 years worth $13 million each. And once that comes off, then they'll have a lot of money to play with in years that they're going to be competitive. Additionally, I just love what Philadelphia has been doing, and Chicago has been doing this too. The White Sox, they've been picking up all these old vet guys in 1-year contracts for low market money, and they can flip them at the trade deadline. So they got Jeremy Hellickson, who they had the qualifying offer for 17 or 18 million. They picked up Andres Blanco, a great defensive infielder. Joaquin Benoit, who's been in the league since the 1990s, essentially. I feel like great
former Ranger as well.
Yeah, and then they have all these prospects that they got from the Cole Hamels trade. So I just think they've done a good job, at least rebuilding in the offseason for what it's worth. I know they're not going to be good this year, next year, but they could be a team to watch out for, especially if they're able to flip some of these guys at the trade deadline.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of took at least somewhat of a page out of their basketball counterparts with the Philadelphia 76ers, in terms of just like trying to focus, just go completely with the young, while just like with a vague investment on veteran players with the intent on still focusing on kind of tanking it for this year. But it's nice to see them turn it around after sort of the hole that Ruben Amaro put them in with all those like bad contracts that he gave out to players that, granted, helped them win a World Series and almost led them to another World Series the following year. But pretty much almost all of them just like fell off a cliff so quickly.
So
but yeah,
now those are finally gone, and they can think about the new era.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like what they're doing, and Odubel Herrera is a great start. He's a fantastic surprise coming out of a Rule 5 draft, selected from the Rangers organization. And the Rangers didn't miss him essentially in 2015 because they plucked their own from the Astros and Delino DeShields. But now it's looking like Herrera getting this extension and Delino DeShields struggling to get a fourth outfield position with the Rangers right now. You got to wonder maybe Herrera would have been like this for the Rangers.
Yeah, well, this is the Rangers seem to have at least like somewhat like bad luck for the past like six years when it comes to like lightly regarded like fringe prospects in their system and ending up seemingly outproducing some of their more highly regarded prospects that they end up keeping. But I mean, good on Odubel. I mean, he went from someone who barely played center field in the minors to being an everyday center fielder for a major league club, and he's been well-deserved. He got a well-deserved pay raise going forward. So congrats to him.
Definitely. Let me talk about a couple more contracts that probably don't warrant that much discussion. Justin Turner got a 4-year, $64 million contract with the Dodgers to join Jansen. He essentially took a pay cut based on the market. Apparently, there are not many third basemen in the market this year. A lot of teams are kind of good on what they got right now. So Justin Turner wasn't going to get a big-ass payday. Nobody really wanted one. Now, Justin Turner had a career year last year. He's been hurt quite a while the last couple of years. 4 years is probably the perfect amount of time that you would want to go for Justin Turner. He's already past 30. This may be his last big contract unless he sustains his career year last year. And then a couple other signings. Matt Joyce signed a contract with the Athletics. The only reason I wanted to bring that up note is because he's been bouncing from terrible team in the last couple of years. Talk about a career that had a lot of promise and just ended up going nowhere. And then the last one I wanted to talk about is Derek Holland, my boy Dutch.
Baby.
Yeah, 1 year, $6 million contract with the White Sox. Again, I have to applaud the White Sox. All they're doing is stealing all these players. They're doing the exact same thing that Philadelphia is doing, grabbing these 1-year deals. They also got Jose Abreu on an $11 million contract after he got waived last year. So we're talking now. Colby Lewis is at best a middle of rotation starting pitcher that you can flip for a lot of good prospects at the trade deadline. And Jose Abreu, same thing. So I really commend the White Sox for getting 5 prospects in the last week or so, and having the potential to get as much in the trade deadline coming up next year. I don't know what the White Sox were thinking. Maybe they were trying to take back their city from the Cubs. You'll have to wait, 2 or 3 years to do that. So yeah, Derek Holland goes to the White Sox. What are your thoughts on Derek Holland leaving the Rangers?
He'll always have a special place in my heart for the performance that he gave in the 2011 World Series, and probably should have been had things gone a little differently by maybe a few inches, he arguably could have been the World Series MVP instead of another person who didn't really do much since that. Although, in all fairness, like Derek Holland had a very strong year the following in 2013. Was almost a borderline all-star and gave a very when paired with Yu Darvish could have made a strong argument that the Rangers had a very strong 1-2 punch going forward. but unfortunately he got hurt. He came back in 2014 and performed relatively well, but then just couldn't, just the injuries began piling up, and he never was able to really regain much of that form that he had that made him so successful prior. And so it's kind of sad to see. I mean, we both met him at in South Austin and got his autograph, so we'll always have that. But yeah, I mean, if there was one thing that I mean, I guess one benefit with him being in Chicago is that now he can do his Harry Carey impressions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have plenty of time to practice that. And then that White Sox rotation, as long assuming that Quintana doesn't get traded, he'll be the number two and number 3 guy behind Rodon. So I think he's earned his middle of the rotation pitcher, just not position, but not just on the Rangers. And it's kind of sad that we're almost at the end of an era now that as of right now, Elvis Andrus is the only remaining player from the 2010 World Series, the Texas Rangers World Series, that's still with the team. And again, Colby Lewis is kind of up in the air. What do you think? Do you think that they would re-sign Colby Lewis? The only reason I would say no is because he was very injury prone last year, and he just wasn't the same pitcher as he was at the beginning of the year in 2016. And I think John Daniels is concerned about Colby Lewis starting to break down at this point. But you know what you're going to get with Colby Lewis, and I think that's why the Rangers may be interested in him still. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if any of the pitching prospects that the Rangers had performed reasonably well at the major league level, like we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I mean, the problem is just like Chi-Chi's just. I have like Chi-Chi's. I don't even know if he can make it in the major leagues at all. Even as a
more than one pitch, I think if he can maybe work it as a fringe reliever in the major leagues, but in order to be a starter, you need to have more than one pitch. They figured him out real quickly,
especially someone that was drafted in the first round too. Definitely. Like that's just it's been very disappointing to see what happened with him. I mean, we traded away quite a few pitching prospects. I mean, I personally, I would have been fine with bringing him back. Although I mean, the thing for me is just I don't know how much money they're willing to play with going into next year. I mean,
if you have Yu Darvish coming up for contract in 2017, you're not going to want to spend a bunch of money on a middle of the rotation pitcher. They might work with what they have in the back end with Andrew Kashner and AJ Griffin and Nick Martinez. It may not be pretty. It may not be pretty, but that's what they're thinking if they want to retain Yu Darvish. Okay, so we still have a couple of unsigned free agents left. The two biggest are Encarnacion and Jose Bautista. The more that they remain unsigned, the happier I'll be. That's all I got to say. And then other people, Chris Carter, who's a potential first baseman candidate for the Rangers. Raja Davis, an outfielder. Neftali Feliz is still in the market. He's not going to get. He's not going to get Kenley Jansen.
So much heartache with that one.
Yeah. Doug Fister's actually still in the market. I don't think the Rangers will go after him. I don't want to see them playing with big money for a guy who's at best a bottom of the rotation pitcher. Mike Napoli's still in the market. Austin Jackson, Tyson Ross. So there's still quite a big couple of names that can go between now and February. So it'll be exciting to see. And again, I'll reiterate this: the longer Encarnacion and Bautista remain unsigned, the happier I will be.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Edwin on this team, but on the Rangers, but like,
he's definitely beneficial.
At this point, I just hope like Bautista just goes away, completely. Maybe
he's not going to go away. He definitely hurt his value by all the comments he made at spring training last year. By
just being the person that he is, honestly.
Yeah, and then being the person that he is, and then having a very average year during his contract year. So a lot of people aren't looking for aging outfielders who probably can't even play the outfield anymore, who had an average career during their contract year. So
and is hard to get along with too.
Aside from the whole bad blood between him and the Rangers, he wouldn't make sense for the Rangers anyway. And I don't think JD is dumb enough to quote unquote betray the fans by taking a flyer on him. And hopefully someone else will, and we will only have to see him 6 times a year.
Hopefully the Angels do.
No, I don't want to see him 19 times a year. I want to see him only 6. I got to be honest.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I want to see the Angels just like sign another like aging position player who completely just drops off in production.
Hey, they've still got Josh Hamilton, $25 million left on that contract. Speaking of which, Josh Hamilton has been cleared to work out, and we expect him to sign a minor league contract with the Rangers soon. I don't have high expectations for him. He could possibly be a 4th outfielder. I have seen people throw out there that he could play first base. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, if you stay in Austin, we could go see him at Round Rock.
Well, you know. All right. So I think that should be all the MLB talk for now. We'll definitely discuss more as more signings come on and the Rangers and the Astros' future for the 2017 season becomes more clear.
Yeah. Let's go forward. Let's at least touch a bit on the NBA. Nathan Kwan had a few things that he wanted me to touch on, specifically with the Rockets and them setting another record for most made threes in a game against the Pelicans last night.
Wow.
The Rockets have just been hot. They've been on fire in a good way. They're on full blast off mode right now because they've won 9 games in a row. Harden also tied Hakeem Olajuwon in all-time triple doubles on Wednesday for the Houston Rockets. Eric Gordon seems to be playing his best basketball of his career. I mean, maybe granted he might. He had a really good game against his former team in the Pelicans, and it seems like he seems to be clicking with D'Antoni, which for all the crap we gave D'Antoni earlier this year, he seems to be a good fit with this team. And Daryl, for the time being, looks like Daryl Morey might have known what he was doing when he decided to bring him in as coach. But the big news for the Rockets this week, aside from all that, is also that Domantas Montejunas has they've basically been allowed to become an unrestricted free agent. There's been talks that the NBA might have come in and intervened, just because, simply put, Demo, as he likes to be called, did not want to play with the Rockets and wanted to be allowed to go out elsewhere. Granted, I think part of the reason might also just be that he last year he failed a physical because of his back. And this past year, 2 weeks ago, he decided to no-show his physical when coming back to the Rockets as a restricted free agent. And so I think part of it is just that his back is not that good at all. And it's just that he might be having trouble. He's going to have trouble going forward getting signed to begin with. But at the same time, it seems to not make much sense for Daryl Morey to let Demo walk for nothing, unless again the back is really that bad, or just Demo just had a bad attitude about coming to the Rockets. Outside of that, it just looks like things are on the up and up for the Houston Rockets. Can't really say the same about the Dallas Mavericks.
No,
though.
Can't do that. I did catch snippets of the games this past couple weeks. I did see them put a beating on the Nuggets on Wednesday, and that's good to see. At least if they can win at home, or at least stay 500 at home, then maybe this season that we know already is a lost cause can be bearable to fans. And I did catch a little bit of the Pistons game. They were up at the time and then ended up losing. They also had a huge lead on the Nuggets win. They had a huge lead on that, and they only ended up winning by 20. So I did kind of see this trend of kind of slipping away in the third and fourth quarter. And then they lost to the Jazz last night on a game-winning 3 by Rodney Hood on the Jazz. So and I didn't get to watch much of that game, but if a team goes 1-2 or 1-3 in the week, and that one game is at home, that's better for the fans than just completely losing every single game.
Agreed. I mean, at the end of the day, in terms of just like the long-term future for this team, they really need to be focused on like trying to get as high a draft pick as they can get. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, fortunately, it's a very strong draft class for point guards. And so, I mean, like even if they only, in terms of the lottery, they only get like maybe like the 6th overall, they still got a shot at least like maybe getting like Lonzo Ball or Dennis Smith. I mean, like I think the best one far and away is Markelle Fultz, but he's probably going to be the 1st overall pick. I mean, the Mavericks are still on pace to be getting the 1st overall pick, but I mean, it's going to be a tough season.
So yeah, but and you also have Dirk coming back, I believe, at the end of the month. And
True.
I doubt that the team will play this bad behind Dirk, even if they are quote unquote tanking. I don't foresee them winning more than maybe 25 games. That I may see them at 20 to 25 games this entire season.
Yeah.
But I think with Dirk, it'll at least look like a bearable team to watch.
Yeah, and I think we'll rally around him, especially it might be his last season. And they want like everyone on this team respects and loves Dirk, and so
everyone in the NBA loves and respects Dirk.
Exactly, yeah. So they'll rally around him. It's just to me at this point, it's more a question on whether or not this team has the talent to win rather than the heart. But let's move on to the Texas basketball. Since we each both watched this team watched one game this week. Let's start with the first one, Long Beach State. What were your observations?
So a lot of the stuff that you have been harping on about, and I kind of mentioned in last week's podcast, they kind of came together. Davis actually had a really good second half. He had 3 different 3-point field goals. That was his key, is making sure this 3-point game was still there like it was from last year. And he ended up doing really well in the second half to prove that he still got it. Claire actually had a really good game. He had 7 rebounds just in the first half. He was basically the only player. That first half was really bad. And I was chalking up a lot of the game to everyone but Shaq Clear, and Shaq Clear, just completely falling flat in the face in the first half. But the second half, they got their stuff together. Jansen was solid off the bench again, and then Davis had a bunch of threes. Allen finally got his stuff together. Tevin Mack was good throughout the game. I do think that there is still concern about who's going to be the number 2 scorer behind Tevin Mack. Roach didn't necessarily step up for that game. And you need your sophomores at this point to stick it out. You need Roach, you need Tevin Mack, you need Eric Davis, and you need Shaq Claire. They all have to be gelling at one time in order for this team to win. They did end up winning. It was against Long Beach State, not necessarily a powerhouse team. But you need to be winning these non-conference games to prove that you can at least look equitable out there in conference schedule. They won 71-65. Not as much the same result as today's Arkansas game, was it?
No, not at all. Everything that you talked about them seemingly being able to fix it in their last game, completely reverted back to everything that we were talking about before. Eric Davis did not do anything this game at all. Like he was completely absent this game. I don't even think he got a point at all. Like again, like Tevin Mack looked pretty good this game, but like they also decided to let him be like a primary ball handler, and they were just like while he can definitely dribble and like he has some good handle, he seems to be like a bit too tall, or like when he dribbles the ball, he dribbles it a bit too high, and like there were quite a few instances of Arkansas being able to steal the ball away from him and get an easy layup on the other end. Allen looked good again. Same with Shaq Claire. Kerwin Roach. I mean, again, he was very inconsistent, and I think a big thing with him is just that like he may not have like the best like basketball IQ. There was an instance that really stuck out to me was when he was up at like the top of the key, and Eric Davis was like looping around in front of him, but there was like an Arkansas guard in between Roach and Davis, and Roach still tried doing a very weak lob over to Eric Davis, and it was a very easy steal by the Arkansas defender and he took it all the way for a layup on the other end. And it's just the big thing with this team is that it's still a very young team, and and while I wouldn't say like it's not a poorly coached team, but they don't have like, this team is definitely not as disciplined as the one it was last year. And the big thing that obviously sticks out is that this team does not have a lot of experience at all. And granted, this wouldn't be that big of a problem because this team like far and away has the talent to make the NCAA tournament. I let me go on record in saying that like this team is talented enough to make it, but they don't. But right now, like at least to start the season, they needed their sophomores and people like Shaq Claire and Kendall Yancey to step up and produce. And if we had half the production that Eric Davis showed last year, if he was able to make half the shots that he was able to do last year, we would have won this game. If this team missed like 13 free throws, if we made half of those, we would have won this game. Like this was a very winnable game, and the thing that like frustrates me is that like the free throw problem has been a problem before Shaka Smart came in. Like I don't know what it is with this team, but it's just like it feels like not enough of the players on this team focus enough on trying to make their free throws, and it's just also like, and while they were probably able to get away with it under Rick Barnes, just because like under Rick Barnes usually they would have like a pretty decent balance between upper and lower classmen. With such a young team that's gonna make a lot of mistakes just due to lack of experience. You can't be making mistakes on your end and then not being able to capitalize on the mistakes of your opponent, and that really came to really kill them this game. I mean, there were good performances from Andrew Jones. Jared Allen was. He had an amazing play where he was able to use his mobility to dunk on a Arkansas center. But yeah, it's just going forward. It's a lot of growing pains. Eric Davis is right now playing like barely like a Division I player at all.
If he can replicate what he did at Long Beach State. So you have to look at the schedule now. You see this team as a tournament team. I do not, and here's why. 3 non-conference games remaining next week against UAB and Kent State. I will be at the UAB game. You should look for me on the TV. I will be holding a clarinet. I will not be at the Kent State game. And then they play Georgia at Georgia on January 28th in the SEC Showdown. And then the remaining games are in-conference games. And based on what the rest of the conference looks like, Texas is going to have a very difficult time in conference play. You said it true. The sophomores have to have stepped up in non-conference play, and then it's supposed to be when the freshmen shine is during conference play. You're looking at Kansas and Baylor and and all these teams at the top of that wheel just destroy this team. We have the youth, but we don't have experience, and we don't have the talent at the upperclassmen level to compete with these teams. So you're going to end up you're probably going to lose those games at home. You're probably the bottom tier teams. I don't even know if you'll steal an away game. And then those middling teams, you'll have to bank on winning the home game and hopefully winning the game at home and at least looking okay at away. I just don't think there's enough games in order for them to get to 20, which is usually the magic number for the tournament at this point. So they look like an NIT team to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but I mean, I saw some really good signs from Andrew Jones and Jared Allen. I mean, Tevin Mack is at least like looking like he's picking up the slack being caused by Eric Davis just being god awful right now, and
more than just Tevin Mack to pick up the slack. In order
Curran Roach needs to. Yeah, agreed. But yeah, I think let's move on to just is there anything else you want to touch on? I know the Texas Longhorns football just hired a new offensive coordinator. He served 1 year at Rutgers, but prior to that he served with Tom Herman. And it looks like Tom Herman is going more for people he's familiar with than necessarily people that he might admire from afar. Do you have any thoughts on that, or just?
I do like how he's hired 4 or 5 staffers from the University of Houston to come along with him. He's basically cleaning shop. He's getting people who are familiar with him. I do think the guy that he got for the offensive coordinator position, Drew Maringer, it'll be interesting to see how he does with a better number of recruits that you can get. At Rutgers, the offense was ranked 128th in NCAA. I think Texas was much higher than that. So it'll be interesting to see if Drew Maringer will be able to bring out the best in the office, especially with Shane Buechele still at the helm. So that's all I really much have to say about that. I hope, at least until recruiting picks back up, that we don't have to hear much about the football team, watching other teams play their bowl games and wonder what could have been.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that's pretty much it for this week. Aside from definitely, I want to give a shout out to UT Volleyball. Got to go see the team. At least just watch the team on TV this past week. Get their revenge on Nebraska and avenge the loss last year in the finals. Now they're making it again to the finals 2 years in a row, and 4th time in the last 8 years that they made it to the collegiate finals, and where they play against Stanford. And they're going to be looking to win their second in as many years. That's very proud for them
to at least have one sport that's excelling as much as they are. It's interesting to see Texas volleyball. This is going to be their 5th championship game in their school history. They won it again in 2012 while we were still there. They've had 12 Final Four appearances, a majority of those being within the last 7 years. Top 25. They've made the top 25 at the end of the year, 28 out of the last 32 years. And they've won the Big 12 basically every year since then. Now, they didn't finish first in the standings this year, but they so all is good in that. It's very cool seeing at least for one Texas team still excelling. And I know that it draws a pretty good crowd to Gregory Gym. I just don't hear a lot of people talking about the Texas volleyball team.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, it's not considered like necessarily like the traditional college, like in terms of just like ones that people usually talk about. It's usually like football, then basketball, then baseball. But like, I mean, like just in terms of just like production, since like the Longhorn Network had been like signed, Like really, it's the only one that's been producing at all has been volleyball. And if you want to include Quidditch, it's really just only been those two,
Well,
those two
Quidditch
and
doesn't get shown
swimming
online
and
right
diving.
now, so.
Not yet, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. They play at what, 8 o'clock tonight?
Yeah, 8 o'clock tonight in Columbus. So on ESPN.
By the time,
so I'll be
people
watching.
hear this podcast, it'll probably be over. But definitely, if you're listening to this before the game starts and you have nothing to watch, then go ahead and turn it on.
Or definitely do watch. Just like make time. If you're going to go see like Star Wars Rogue One, skip it. You can always watch it again.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I mean, definitely no. Watch it. Support your team. Like these girls are the best of Texas. They are not girls; they're women. They're women. These women represent the best of Texas. They represent, and they're not only that, but they are arguably the best in the nation and therefore the world. You know, so definitely support them.
Definitely, and even if they don't win, I'd like to see if you're still at UT to go to more games next year. The crowd at Gregory Gym is always good, and it's always a fun experience, even if you don't know that much about volleyball. All right, so we got a couple more shout-outs to wrap up the podcast. A couple more NFL tidbits. Jeff Fisher got fired as the Rams head coach. He is tied for the most losses in for head coaches in NFL history. I'm sure he asked to get fired so he didn't have the record because they ended up losing to the Seahawks on Thursday.
Yeah.
So
a week after signing a 2-year extension too.
Yeah, he signed that extension. Apparently, I read something like they had actually signed it at the beginning of the season, and they just didn't make it public until a few weeks ago. But if I were a Rams fan, I'd be frustrated, but also glad that it wasn't another 7-9 year.
Yeah. No. Well, the thing is that they don't even have like their first round pick this year, so like the worst year for them not to go 7-9, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. A couple other things. Ryan Tannehill sprained his MCL. And we originally thought it was going to be a torn. He was going to be out for the rest of the season. I think he is limited. I'm not sure what his injury status is right now, but if I were the Dolphins, I would actually be worried about this. They're in a tight race with the Broncos and the third place in the AFC West team, and even the second place in the AFC for that last spot for the playoffs. By having Tannehill out for one game or potentially every game for the rest of the year, that is not good.
Yeah, well, apparently he's not going to be. He's definitely not playing tomorrow. And instead, it's going to be Matt Moore coming in, and he hasn't played since the last game of the 2011 season. I mean, he's also a former Cowboys backup too. But
that should speak wonders on how good Matt Moore will play.
Yeah. Well, I mean, prior to them getting Tannehill, he wasn't necessarily like god awful or anything, but like it's been like 4 or 5 years since he had to start. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, fortunately for the Miami Dolphins, they have Jay Ajayi, and they have a decent receiving core. I mean, worst comes to worst, they rely on their running game and their defense being led by Ndamukong Suh and Cameron Wake in that pass rush, which is very strong. But yeah, that's
so maybe they'll rough it out into the playoffs. But if Tannehill's still hurt in the playoffs and they make the playoffs, then they're not going to have a good time with Matt Moore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with Tannehill, like it was going to be very tough for them to win.
They probably have a better chance with Tannehill.
Oh yeah, no, agreed.
Okay, and then I don't know if you watched the game on Thursday. Seattle was up 24-3. That's the score that they ended up winning by. John Ryan, the punter for Seattle Seahawks, had a really, really funny play. He ran a fake punt where basically the O-line kind of did a Moses thing where they kind of split. And John Ryan had this really big running lane to run through. So he did the fake punt and ran for about 30 yards. he fumbled the ball on his own like hustle, and basically ran
in the
into
middle
a
of running
defender and hurt himself. And
Yeah.
I hope he gets well soon, but it's just really funny. We can link that
no,
in the
it's-
description.
Yeah.
That
No, it
video.
was. I mean, it was funny. I mean, it's funny to watch him replay. Like while I was watching it, it was at first I found it funny, and then I saw him like actually get like knocked out, and then you were kind of scared. But I mean, like watching it now, like you're like, oh, okay, he's fine. Like he's not dead or anything.
Yeah.
But it was just like it was. Yeah. Go ahead.
And he's a punter, so a lot of punters and
Yeah.
kickers aren't necessarily conditioned to take hits or to receive hits. So that's always a scary. You got to think of people like us who aren't NFL body built, going out there and doing that kind of thing. That's the equivalent.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the bigger thing that like threw me for a loop was like, why was Seattle doing this while up like 21 against like a very bad St. Louis team?
Yeah.
It like at the very end of the game, like it seemed in a weird way kind of disrespectful, but in another way it was just sort of like why not? Like maybe he does something good, and it was like, well, he was. Then he fumbled it on his own volition, but he caught it and was able to fall on his knees. And then that's when he got like nailed in the head and got knocked out for 5 seconds.
We'll have a link in the description for the video. Okay, and then so we mentioned this last week, but the MLS Cup was last week. Seattle Sounders won. They beat Toronto FC in a shootout. So congrats to the Seattle Sounders for winning the MLS Cup. Now the next thing that Seattle has to work on is getting a basketball team again.
Yeah. Either that or just convincing the NHL to let them play in Key Arena.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then the last thing I had was when I was at Pluckers on Wednesday. It was trivia night. Oh, I didn't participate because we didn't get there in time. So I'll ask you this question real quick.
Okay.
So name the NFL
Quiz Bowl
team.
city champ. Okay.
Okay. Name the NFL team that had been handed the last loss by. Okay. Name the NFL team that got the last loss given to them by the Cleveland Browns. So when was the last time the Cleveland Browns won?
The San Francisco 49ers.
Okay, well you're a smarter man than I am.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm a former middle school champion at Quiz Bowl, man. So
I think it's funny to have that as a trivia question. The Cleveland season has just been abysmal. That the fact that even their team is the punchline of a trivia question. And if I were the 49ers, I wouldn't feel too good about that either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. 49ers have been kicked in the balls for a while. I mean, it's weird to me though that it's just like you have both two of the worst football teams are located in cities where they've actually had really good success this year for in pretty much all other sports, specifically like San Francisco being the Bay Area, got Golden State and the San Francisco Giants, and then Cleveland having the amazing sports year that they had this year, and basically I guess like sacrificing the Browns to the sports gods for the joy that they've been able to have this year has been interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you don't end up beating the team that has been as the Cleveland Indians, beating the team that had a 108-year losing streak in Major League Baseball. All right. Did you have any other things you wanted to discuss in shoutouts?
Well, I mean, going back to Cleveland, the 3-1 lead giveth, the 3-1 lead taketh away. But yeah, not really. That's about it. One more thing. Just want to give a shout out to Evan Tenenbaum for completing his graduate degree and getting his master's. Congratulations, man, and
Oh, man.
welcome to the real world now. So
I can't wait to start looking for jobs, man. That's all I gotta say. If you'll pay me, then I'll be on here forever and ever.
yeah.
Also,
Well, take care. Yeah,
also wanted to throw out a condolences to Craig Sager's family. The broadcaster for, I believe it was on TNT. He died this week. If you don't know who Craig Sager is, he was the guy who interviewed Hank Aaron after he hit his 715th home run to pass Babe Ruth. So again, condolences to his friends and family. A lot of people dying this year, and it's not a fun topic to always talk about.
Yeah. It's been a rough year. Kind of reminds me again of like sort of like 2009 and how like in terms of just like celebrity death count. But yeah, I mean like our rest in peace to Craig Sager. Condolences to the family. I mean, granted, I'm a lowly 24-year-old sports fan, but I mean he was someone that he was always he seemed like a genuinely nice person, and just he was always someone that was like fun. He was one of the like few interviewers who was always like very fun and memorable, and I mean, he'll always be remembered for his fancy suits, for sure, at the very least. Yeah, but yeah, that's it for this week. Good luck with everything. So long.
Yep.